You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg. Normally, Omi is with me doing the podcast, but she's been activated. She's been called up. She's serving her community. So anyway, this is season 8, episode 321. And title is We're Surviving in Western North Carolina, Flying Solo, and What's Next. So here's the deal. When we normally do our little intro on our podcast, we say we're broadcasting, from deep in our underground bunker in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And that's true. We are, and we do. So here's the deal. Hurricane Helene has been especially mean. So the way it's kind of working for us is if you're following in the podcast and driving down the road, if you go past Asheville as you're heading towards Swannanoa and then Black Mountain and then Old Fort and then Marion and then keep on going from there, we're in that area. And so when the Hurricane Helene, which became Tropical Storm Helene, sort of sat and just dumped torrential amounts of water on our area, it created issues, devastating issues. There are people who have lost everything. I mean, literally, they are wiped off the map. And I'm not just talking about Asheville. I'm talking about some of these communities that were up in the mountains. Because this is Appalachia, man. Up in the mountains, mudslides occur. They wash houses away. So bridges are gone. Houses have been just washed like mudslides, just been washing things. It's crazy. It's nuts. And we're kind of in the middle of all of it. And luckily for us, we are in a sort of a protected area. We're sort of surrounded by, we're like almost like in a bowl. So, the winds were pretty good. The rain that we got was pretty torrential. Sort of flooded the bunker a little bit. Blew some branches down around where we are. Knocked the power out. And when the power goes out and you have a well, there's no water. And so it's been no power, no water since Thursday at 1:15 a.m. But we're lucky because there's houses that have been washed away. Bridges that connect houses and communities to, civilization washed away. Mudslides, taking out highways, all this stuff. It is absolutely insane. The amount of devastation in this area and that what you see on TV is pretty accurate. So in our area alone, there's probably been at least 80 deaths, at least, minimum, because they still have to go find these people. And where houses used to be that are, up on the side of a mountain, they're now down in the valley or somewhere else or been washed away. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah. So Omi has been called to, she works for the county. So county was activated. So she's somewhere in a command center type situation, giving out information and doing the good stuff because FEMA's here. Emergency management, for the county is active and running. Who else is here? Homeland Security is here. National Guard is here. Volunteers, of course, are there. Linemen and lineman companies to restore power. They're all sort of situated in sort of a command center type thing, like a little city. And that's where she is, taking phone calls from different counties and people trying to help them find, their missing loved ones, of which there are thousands. Because infrastructure got washed away or knocked out or disappeared, right? No cell phone service, no internet, no power, no water, and no way to restore that, So it's what now Wednesday. It's almost a week later, and things are getting better. But millions of people were without power. We're still without power, but overall we are much better than some. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up a little bit, and let you know that podcast lives. It's still here. But I really just wanted to kind of come on and kind of give you an idea of what's sort of happening in this area. So, restoring the conveniences, right? The water and the power and all that stuff, and getting air conditioning running and all that, that's great. And we're looking forward to all that. But the future of the town that we're in is in jeopardy. The future of other towns, those other towns that just don't exist anymore. They're just gone. Places that you would come and visit and see in our area are gone. It's going to change everything. It changes the topography of where we are. It changes the reason why people would want to come here. It changes the way people get their livelihoods here. As this thing sort of progresses and we get out of all this sort of disaster and recovery, rebuilding is going to take years, and there's going to be issues. Some things are just never going to come back. Some jobs are just going to go away. Yeah. It's going to change this area where we are, the surrounding counties and other areas, and deep in the mountains and all of that is going to be changed forever. Yeah, I've seen reports of people like, it's like a bomb went off. Yeah, it is absolutely nuts and sad. So we are very lucky. Yeah. Awful. So, for those of you who don't know, I actually have another YouTube channel. It's called Cheap Geek. It's shocking, right? And where I've done videos about things and just, product reviews, DIYs, how-tos, camper van stuff. And, we have a camper van, and we've been using our camper van to do camper van type stuff, along with going out and doing paranormal stuff and taking trips for the podcast, that sort of thing. And everything that we have in that camper van, we're currently using to survive. So, the solar charges things. We have USB power to everything. It's just, water containers. All of that stuff is useful. Camp stoves, all the stuff you'd need to eat and sleep and basically live. We've been able to use, it's been in our camper van, including a generator. So we have a small generator. It's a 2,300 watt inverter generator, and that's allowed us to power our Starlink. So while the storm was going and the power went out and people were sitting around in the dark and in these little communities where they had no service, no connection, no communication, we were able to be on the internet and look at things and try to see what's going on. And I will say, I don't know what happened in the area where we are or in some of these other communities. You shouldn't lose cell phone service. If you have giant towers that are supposed to be protected and heavy duty, there shouldn't be a loss of communication. Especially like in a town like Asheville. There should have been no reason why Asheville didn't have cell phone service. There's no communication, no connectivity, none of that stuff. So, you have people that are out there trying to rescue people and doing their jobs and they can't communicate. You have people that are there surviving and they can't communicate. I don't understand why it went down like that. And roads going into Asheville, highway and bridges, and the ways that you would get into Asheville were wiped out. It almost became, inaccessible. But people couldn't communicate with each other at all. I don't get it. We're in an area where a generator and Starlink, and we're able to see what's going on and make phone calls and do that kind of thing. But they couldn't do that in Asheville. So I don't know. Yeah. I think the cell phone providers need to do a better job, and I think they should be held accountable. I know some people were looking at different cell phone providers and asking questions, and they were basically the companies were blaming certain things that didn't make sense instead of accepting, we should probably stick some more money in infrastructure. In our own infrastructure. So, stop trying to sell me the latest phone for $1,000 and get it to where at least I have signal. Big giant cell phone tower that has power. or doesn't have the capability to be. I'm a little aggravated at a couple different things, and that just happened to be one of them. We're outside of town with a small generator and Starlink, and we had better connectivity and better communication options than the city of Asheville. It just doesn't seem right. So, if anybody important is listening to this podcast, and everybody that listens is important, but there's levels of importance, right? Let's say you're one of these community leaders, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to the local podcast. If you don't make it happen to where every government or municipal or county facility has like Starlink or satellite communications for emergencies, then you're missing it. You're missing the entire thing. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. So, I mean, $300 and in the service, and you can get internet. You can see the sky. And with internet comes email. And with email comes basically being able to send text messages. Maybe make a call over Wi-Fi. Maybe send an email to get, better, quicker, faster aid. Maybe be able to make decisions faster so that relief aid can get out and be deployed where they need to be deployed for people that really need it. There are people that don't have water or food or lights, even still, almost a week later. Little rant on my part, but I apologize. So as far as spooky stuff goes to the podcast, I don't really have anything to say. Not this time. Although I have been watching TikTok and things like that and seeing lots of crazy stories about the storm with Helene, who was very mean to Asheville and us and all the other counties, right? And parts of Tennessee and Georgia. It's not just, one community that's affected. It's a bunch. And they were just overinflated numbers about things like, casualties and victims and things. I do think it's going to be pretty bad when they get a final tally. I think the number that you see on TV, like 100 deaths, that's low. That's very low. Because they haven't even been able to go out and find where houses that have been washed away in mudslides or just disappeared because the river overflowed, or the fact that some of the dams had water running over them with the same pressure as Niagara Falls, man. It was nuts. And people were, saying, well, they should have been prepared. We are prepared in this area. Everyone in this area is prepared for heavy rain. It happens. We all know it. We get some flooding. We're all aware of it. We're used to the power going out with storms. Not used to having torrential mudslides and rivers overflowing. The amount of flood water cresting over some of these bridges and road crossings and dams was indescribable. Even opening up floodgates to relieve some of the it wouldn't have mattered. And it happened so quick. It went from being a regular sort of typical sort of storm for us to holy moly, we got water coming in. So I couldn't even imagine being somewhere where you're actually in a flood zone. So there were people that had no opportunity to get out and survive, and it happened quick. And you can be prepared for hurricanes. We are. Other people are too. We're prepared for storms and floods and stuff, but this was just catastrophic. Came out of nowhere. It was absolutely nuts. So to say that people should have been better prepared, it's not fair. It's not a fair thing. It's not a fair statement. We're prepared just in general, because the way we use the camper van when we go do things is kind of like the way I look at it is it's a self-contained vessel. It's almost like a sailboat or something. We should, have our own water and power and all that sort of thing, just in case we get lost in the desert. We could survive for 2 weeks. That's kind of my mindset to it. And I've been using everything that we have, and it's basically turned what is a horrific situation into an inconvenience for us. And I don't say that lightly. Because there there are areas that are never going to recover from this storm. It's nuts. I will say there are a couple sort of paranormal related things that Fate Magazine, who's relatively local to us in this area, I believe they're out of Hendersonville, North Carolina. They survived. It's great. The outpost that we went to about a month ago or so, maybe a little bit more than that, Michaelville Outpost is destroyed. And it's very sad to see that. They're all alive, but the outpost is gone. I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from it. I hope so. It was a very fun place to go. So, yeah. That's about the two things I can tell you. But yeah, Omi is working 12.5-hour shifts, coordinating all those peeps and doing her part. Very proud of her. I know it's tough. So she leaves, comes back, goes to bed, gets up, heads back out again. And just a sort of a thanks to all the county employees and volunteers and official peeps trying to get everything up and running again. We're pretty lucky in our area. So gas stations and stuff opened back up. Walmart, which is, a warehouse of supplies, right, is open. Fast food joints are open. Trees have been cleared. And I will tell you this about this sort of town we live in and the surrounding areas, this little Appalachian area, right? Say what you will, but as soon as it was stopped being too windy, right, and the wind stopped, and you're listening, you hear the sound of chickens and chainsaws. Local people know that if you want services restored, you got to make it accessible. Roads had trees over them. There's like thousands of trees hanging on power lines, Nick, and that's not an exaggeration. But the next day, as soon as it was bright enough to see and the wind wasn't super dangerous, chickens and chainsaws, man. Local dudes out there with chainsaws. Put them in the back of the trucks, go out there cutting stuff down, pulling stuff out of the way, doing everything they could to clear the area. And since they're local, man, they can do whatever they want, right? These good people, these hillbillies, if you want to call them that, or affectionately rednecks, whatever disparaging term you want to use doesn't apply. These dudes, chainsaws, dragging trees off the road so that the line trucks could get through. Rules be damned. And it's part of the culture here because they don't trust the government, that they know that the government is not going to be there to help them out. And that's partially true. So they're like, you know what? Let's take matters in our own hands and get things going. We'll go ahead and do things ourselves so we can make things. It's crazy, man. Chicken and chainsaws just going to town. And so by the time we went out to kind of see what's going on, to make sure that the path that Omi would have to take to go and work her shifts was able, to be gone, because there's normal routes were blocked. A lot of routes were blocked. A lot of the bridges and little overpasses and things that go over rivers and creeks were gone. So I had to kind of figure out how to get her there. Easy, good to go. Lines were cleared. Trees were off the road. Everything was sort of good. So they're running lines now to restore power. There are lots of areas where power's been restored. The highway was open again. Highway 40 was closed because, mudslides sort of, things are getting back to where they need to be. But it's, these towns, they'll never be the same. So, and what's going to be terrible is when everything sort of gets back to normal. Counties and county management, municipal, just government in general are going to have to figure out where their budgets are going to go. So it's kind of a garbage time. But we're good. Our family is good. People that we know seem to be okay. Everybody that, we know of is accounted for. I hate to say it is what it is, but it kind of is. But there are a lot of people out there that are definitely need help and are going to need help for a while. And this isn't going to go away quickly. And this is going to be in the news where they're just going to keep finding, what's left of people's lives and people themselves. So, whatever, man. I'm just kind of rambling. So anyway, we haven't done a podcast in a minute, and this is part of the reason. But I just thought I'd kind of jump on here and kind of give you an idea what's going on. I know it sounds doom and gloom, but as far as worst case scenarios go, we are good to go. So if you're worried about us in the podcast, we're doing what we got to do. Everything's fine. It's fine. It's good. Life will be much better when power gets back on, so you can better assess exactly what's going on, get things sort of rounded up. Rounded back to normal, get things going. We'll see what happens. I will say, fun fact, when I talked about the camper van, I do carry stuff that we need if we go somewhere, right? Like extension cords and stuff like that. And so I had to dig out an extension cord to run it into the bunker, to try to provide some additional power to be able to power podcast type stuff. And guess what? It glows in the dark. So I got a cord, right? The extension cord glows green in the dark. I was like, this is probably the best thing that's happened out of this entire garbage situation. So Hurricane Helene was very mean to Western North Carolina and Tennessee and other places. So if you want to help and you're looking to help, don't just randomly send money. Make sure that whoever you're trying to donate to or whatever you're trying to do isn't an official legit thing. So, because there's people that, want to come and loot and will prey on your good sensibilities and take your money. And there's a lot of people that want to jump in trucks and come down here and help everybody. And, that thought and effort should be applauded. However, a bunch of people showing up trying to do the right thing can create issues. There's a lot of planning and coordination that it has to go on for rescues and prioritizing things and trying to get power established and get infrastructure back so that everything else can sort of fall in line. And I understand the urge to want to run in and help. Maybe make a phone call first and see if maybe some churches could use some help if you really want to do something. It's a trying time. But anyway, appreciate you taking time to listen to the podcast. I know it probably wasn't what you were expecting, but just so you know, we're surviving in Western North Carolina. I'm flying solo for this podcast, and what's next is when we get the lights back on, we're going to keep doing podcasts. As far as our town, our community, and what's going to happen after that, nobody knows what's next for that. But the outlook and the way things are not the way they're going to be for the next foreseeable future. I think the worst this town has been hit was in 1954, and here it is. I can't do the math. 74 years later, and it's just as bad. So we'll see what's going on. But anyway, do appreciate you taking the time to listen to this 20-minute podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, send us an email. We got a Facebook page where you can kind of reach out to us. We also have a toll-free number if you'd like to kind of call and leave us a message. And that number is 575-208-4025. Facebook is CreepGeeks. Our website's CreepGeeks.com. TikTok is CreepGeeks. Yeah. So if you type CreepGeeks, you're going to find us. Oh, and I'd like to say thanks to everybody who's been reaching out to us. Just make sure we're okay. It's very nice, and we are. So, anyway, there you go. So, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, reach out. Let us know what's going on. If you have questions for us about maybe people in the area that you may be worried about, we might be able to look into it for you as best we can. So, I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't hurt. Ask questions. So, anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.